Okay, we are live. Me and the birds. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. Happy Saturday. We are starting a new month. So April is done, and now we have May coming in. So we've still been buying the dip, and that's what we've been sort of seeing on the charts. Even with our red days, it's still getting bought overall, and you see that from kind of when we're looking at it on these larger time frames, seeing the overall trends. Let me change this back to the day. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the regular stuff. Welcome everybody. If y'all have anything you want me to look at, drop it in the chat and I will get to that. So okay, so starting at the VIX. The VIX is still in this overall downtrend. You see it broke through this trend line here that we had, and it still has a little bit more room to go. I think it is at a pretty key level. I swear these birds got louder just now. But I think it can still drop down maybe another dollar or so, even down here to about 14.23, before I think we may see some type of reversal. It's a pretty strong 2 up, 2 down on the month here. So for it to really correct, it's got a lot of range to move through if we were to see like some type of reversal here, like a 2 down, 2 up next month. So right now, yeah, it's still looking like it's in this downtrend. It's still below all of the EMAs. It's using it kind of as a resistance. It'll pop up, but then it sells right back off. So that's how the VIX is looking. The dollar has also been weak and pretty much in a downtrend. Again, it's a little bit more of a range here where it can move up. It would need to break 103 to be able to move to the upside for next month. So looking at it, you got a fresh TTO here on the week, and then you got a PMG on the week as well. So interesting to see. This is also a possible rev strat. So it's an indecision candle though, so not quite sure what's going on here. But if it did decide to reverse, you got a rev strat there where it can move to the upside, and then you got this PMG that is possible. Oh wait, nope, never mind, because it's not quite a PMG, but there are several red weeks. It could do kind of like how it did here if it wants to do any recovery. So yeah, watch the dollar. Looking at NASDAQ has been booming. We did a 3-2 continuation on the month, but just barely. It was still kind of tight. It would have been nice if it had stayed inside, but it just couldn't do that with the earnings. So if anything, is no actionable signal here, but it could possibly 3-2 up on the month. To me, it's looking like it's definitely going to do that. We have a 3, so if it would be a 3-2 continuation, that would be a 3-2 continuation on the month. So the magnitude there is this 13,726. That's the next target to the upside, which is also this monthly target right here. But one thing I did want to point out, I mean, of course, we're still above this 200, well above it. We did wash below this 8 and 20, but if you notice, all it did was take all of these folks out here. It barely filled that gap before it reversed. And with this pattern right here, it's almost like a 3 white soldiers. It's only 2. So if this opens up anywhere within this candle and booms up, it'll be a 3 white soldiers reversal pattern. So nice bounce right there and reversal for it to continue up. And we'll see a little bit of some of the things on the charts why it could sustain this movement and keep going. Of course, like I said, we're still above this 200 on the daily, so we know that we're still in bullish mode. We're still in buy the dip mode. This, honestly, this drop right here could be a little head for our inverted head. And so this will be our shoulder area. And so if we have any more shoulder action, it would be over here. As long as that's supported by really this 12,940, I think it would still be valid. So it can come back down and test that 12,940 even to this 12,925 and still be valid. So it can come test it and still keep going. So that would be my support there for that. Looking at the Dow finally broke out a little, but it's still in this consolidation area, this same shoulder area. But when you really zoom out, you can see that it's an overall larger inverted head and shoulders. So we had some drop, but we're still in that shoulder area, which is really valid. It could come all the way down to this 200. That 330 has been acting, can be the strong support. And also that's right where the 200 is. So as long as we're staying above here, we're still in that same shoulder area. So the shoulder area really is from 343 to about, well, as low as this, really, that 332 or that 330, where it can come down. I think that the next support is probably going to be about this 336. But looking at it on the month, it didn't quite finish the month. It could definitely do that next month. But there's no actionable signal here except on the week. There is a possible 3-2 up. Really strong candle here where you can see, we had that inside consolidation. We came out and took these people out, and these people out before we reversed. And then ended with not quite a hammer, but a really strong, sort of like a hammer. So if this does a 3-2 continuation up, then that would be the signal for it to continue to this monthly target, which would be 348. Your first target, of course, would be this 343 and then 348. So again, this is like NASDAQ, where it had this correction, this TTO, and then printed these two candles. So I'm thinking that we're going to get that third candle, kind of similar to what Kiki was saying on the Discord about having a green Monday. If we have a green Monday, that'll give us that third white soldier there. So yeah, that's the Dow. IWM is, all of these are actually looking similar. If you notice, we'll have that consolidation pattern. Then we had those two red days that came and TTO'd a bunch of folks out, and then it reversed. So are we going to have that third soldier here? Our first gap would be here at this 176.41. It's the first gap we created, and then this gap over here that we just cannot seem to quite make it to, this 181.31. I'm actually going to take off. This is, oh, these are old. 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so this 181.36 would be my next target. This kind of almost looks like an H. Well, it did H. It just didn't come all the way down to its support before it boomed out. So no actionable signal here on the week, but you do have an inside month. So if it does find some strength to finally break over this and maybe fill this gap, then we can finally see a move up. But 180 is going to be that first real strong resistance. Then if it can keep going, it'll go to that gap fill, and then the 212 up would be the 192. So this is small cap, so the small caps we need to run. But otherwise, we do have the time frame continuity has been red. It's been in a downtrend for the most part. So again, like that 180 is proved to have been a really strong resistance. It would have to break to the upside for me to really feel strongly about that, and for possibly, start a new month and week green. And then let me see, where is the quarter? So the quarter, yeah, so it'll flip the quarter green at 180, 178, 179. So yeah, that, next week could definitely change that. If this decides it wants to 212 up reverse on the month, then it would give the full time frame continuity. It would turn it to the upside. Of course, like I said, we don't uncouple until the following week. But you can look for those things because you know it'll be green on the quarter above 180. It has to hold above that 180, and it hasn't really been able to. So consequently, if everything reverses, then you got this 3-2-2 up. 3-2 up, 2 down reversal, and it could probably come back down and maybe take these folks out and then actually really do a whole H. So those are the two ways that it could go. It would need to break 171-ish for more downside. But, this candle isn't really a shooter, so sort of, this is red here, but yeah. 180 is going to be that really strong resistance right there with IWM. Apple. So Apple broke through this weekly, brought in information you see that I have here with some strength and kind of ended really nice on all time frames. You can tell that the bulls have been buying it. It's in basically a straight uptrend, supported here by the 8 and the 20. No actionable signal here on the month, but if anything, if it does a 3-2 up on the week, can catch that to this 171, and then these 176.04 is going to be the next monthly target for Apple. And again, this actually looks, just like how the NASDAQ looked, where we had that come up, a little bit of consolidation, TTO, and a reversal. That's how Apple is looking, green on all time frames. Basically, this is almost a W, it's just crooked. But you can see where the support is for Apple. And it's making higher lows and higher highs. So we're going to be bullish until we're not. Now remember that Apple has earnings on Thursday of next week. So, this could definitely be an earnings run. We want to be aware of that because basically it's been on a tear. You got your run here, your base, your run here, but where's the base? So it may need to have a little bit more correction back down to this 8 or 20 once these earnings come out. So yeah, it could come all the way back down to this 164.42. But we really can't predict what earnings is going to do. We just gotta have to see what's going to happen. We know that it's been running though, so for the most part, because it's been running, we know that people will take profits. They may take profits before earnings, or they may do it at earnings. Earnings could blow it out the water or whatever. But also we want to remember that they have an event in June, and it's talking about their I believe it's their AI headset or some type of headset, something like that. That I think that this has been running, kind of anticipating that, and that's also kind of what's been holding Microsoft up, was their guidance on their cloud computing and stuff like that. So yeah, if anything, we may have some correction for earnings, but I wouldn't expect for it to die off the face of the earth. And then also looking at it on this 200, we're well above it. Well above it. It would need it would have to break this entire structure of higher highs and higher lows, and then hold and make a new lower high for me to think that Apple has reversed. So yeah, right now we are in a solid uptrend, and it's kind of the same for Microsoft. As you can see, you had a nice double bottom here and boomed. We ended as an outside week, but earnings just really sent this thing. So it could definitely, they could continue. We could do a 3-2 up. If y'all were paying attention in the Discord, I believe that Jay gave the targets of 314, and then I think 318 was his next target. It's kind of close to the STRAT targets. We got 316 here on the week, which I think is going to be a strong resistance, because you can see it wicked 3 times from there. So that'll be a strong resistance. But before we get there, we do have this gap here on the day that we can go for. So that gap at 310 is going to be my first target, and then that 315 to the upside. To the downside, if anything, because we now have such a big 3 bar, if anything, I would expect if we don't 3-2 up, we may consolidate inside. And you know, we just created a huge gap, so of course that's going to be the downside target, is that gap at 281. But to be honest, you know, it's looking again like Apple and NASDAQ, where we had that TTO and then it boomed. This isn't really a white soldier, but it could definitely put another one in to push up to that 310 and then possibly that 315. We have Powell, the Fed interest rate decision on Wednesday, and Powell speaking on Wednesday. So interesting to see which way markets will go this week. We could definitely push up to Powell and then, you know, have a couple red days through the interest rate decision and Apple, or vice versa. Just kind of have to play what the market gives you. But right now we're seeing bullish activity. Yeah, we're not saying it's overbought or anything like that. We know that we still have magnitude to the upside, but we just will play whatever levels we are given. So yeah, so that would be your downside targets with Microsoft. I actually didn't mean to do Meta and Amazon. It was the Qs. So looking at the Qs, similar to, this is actually sitting at the top of my weekly broadening formation. So interesting to see if it's going to break out from here. You have to watch basically Microsoft and Apple to see if they can sustain these rallies, to see if the Qs are going to push it. Real quick, we can look at Meta because, you know, Meta is a portion of the Qs and SPY. And we know that Meta did gap up. So any weakness in these 4, I would say, would let you know, you know, this may be retracing. Or as long as they hold, you can know that this can continue. So Facebook holding this gap here is a sign. You want to see what it does to that. But we also know we have a gap from way back here. So there are 2 ways it can go. It can still try to fulfill all of these. This is ghost zone area, or it can come back down and try to fill some of this gap. So watching this will help you see which way that the indices are going to go, and then also watching VIX. If VIX hits that key support and reverses, then we might see some retracement. And same thing with Amazon. Amazon was the weakest out of all of the reports. So if that continues to fall, and then Meta falls, Microsoft falls, Apple falls, then everything else can probably fall. Otherwise, Amazon actually could reverse from here because it's had its earnings drop, and then it could reverse, and that will help to push everything back up. Well, continue everything in this upwards movement. So again, no actionable signal on the month, but on the week, if it continues, it would be a 3-2 continuation. You have that fresh TTO, and then the reversal. This was a beautiful 2-1-2 or 3-1-2. No, that's a 2. Yeah, 2-1-2 up reversal. And it is so strong that again, I'm expecting for it to make that third white soldier. And if Microsoft and Apple keep going to the upside, then that will help continue that. But remember, we are at the top of this broadening formation, so could be a rejection point. And again, because this is such a big week, we could also have a consolidation week. It could just be a 3-1 and then 3-1-2 up, or 3-1-2 down. Either way, this is kind of a mother bar now that we have to either work our way above or try to work our way down. And then there was SPY. I'm going to hide all these lines, y'all, because I'm not deleting them. I'm going to go redraw them because they're a little outdated. especially for the month, and especially since we're uncoupling. I like to really update my charts in the month, once a month. But looking at SPY, oh, wrong. I just wanted to hide the drawings. There we go. So looking at SPY, that hammer played out really nicely last month, but it did not hit its magnitude, which was about 418. Which is interesting though, is that ES did hit 4180. So honestly, we can really probably expect SPY to try to hit that 418 on Monday, especially if it does that same pattern where we had this TTO, which could possibly be an inverted head. That's kind of what a TTO could be, and also broaden information. And then we had a reversal. So we have the 1-2 white shoulders. We're looking for the third. So if anything, it would be a 3-2 up continuation. And then that would be that third white soldier. And we can see that 418 will be our first resistance. And then we have that little gap that I think has just been slowly grinding towards at 421.24. So those are going to be my upside targets. It's going to probably grind a little bit up there, and then if it wants to continue, it can still go to this 432 area. So looking at it though, when you zoom out, we did have like a head and shoulders here that for the most part played out shorter term, but then it rejected and moved up. So we have this larger inverted head and shoulders, and even a shorter term shoulder head, and then our shoulder area. So the shoulder area is going to be about 410 is going to be that support, and then about 408, between 407 and 408 is going to be that support for the shoulder to really still be valid. So that's about the 20. Yeah, I would give it 408. So it could retrace to that 408 and then still keep going. But yeah, you do have a shoulder here, a head, and this could be your shoulder area, especially if we have an inside week. So it could be like a 2-1, 2 down, and then make this a shoulder, iron this out, and then boom, and finally go for that gap. So those will be the upside targets with SPY. Looking at XLE, because we're still watching energy. So even though this isn't a hammer and it isn't an inside mouth, I still kind of like this setup. If you look at it, it barely took out the previous month's high, and then it came back in. But if it did continue and finally break above that 87, 82, then it can move to the upside. You got your TTL right here. This is kind of sort of consolidation that it had. This right here, it consolidated TTL, and then it bounced right off of this 200. Nice rejection there, with almost a hammer and then a reversal. So we could possibly see the three white soldiers from here. That's possible. So I was looking to see it break out of this range, and it finally did. So if it does continue and start that three white soldiers reversal, then it could 2 down, 2 up. It really needs to break that range though. As you can see, it's rejected from there several times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So it's well tested. Have to see what it does from there, and then it could possibly keep on going. Now remember, we were saying that we got our shoulder, head still in the shoulder area. So for the most part, as long as it holds this 200, I think we should be good. And now that we've come back and tested it, it may actually move out of this shoulder area and boom, like it should. So otherwise, it may actually come all the way down here to 78 and test 78. which would be, if it does do that, then you can look for the 2 up, 2 down reversal on the month. It would need to come down under 83. But if it does that and it reverses and breaks this 200, then you can look for 78 is your first target, and then the 75.46 strat target. So of course we're going to look at our favorite stock from the sector, and for me it's going to be ZOM. ZOM is a little bit different than XLE, and that's mostly because it just had its earnings. But that's why I wanted to speak on it now, because it did just have its earnings. So that is great. However, ZOM has now hit I believe this was a new 52-week high. Yep. She got a fresh TTO and it came back in. So weakness in energy in ZOM may show, since it broke out of this area and boom. Now consequently, this consolidation, it did rally base, and so this could also be the start of a rally. So either way, if it decides to come back and it comes through this range and has some serious correction, then you can 2 up, 2 down on the month and go for this gap. Otherwise, it may try to continue to the upside. Remember, we were showing on XLE that on the year we have a really big broadening formation. So if it wants to go, it can still go. It may, have had its corrective period, which has been in this range right here since all of last year. Oh no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Oh no, I am looking at the right thing. This is ZOM that I wanted to look at. Yes, so this is our consolidation. So we had our boom last year, our consolidation, TTO, and then the reversal. So are they going to continue this, or is it going to come back into this range? Looking at chips. So chips, I think, have had a fresh TTO. There's no actionable signal here on the monthly, but on the week, it's a hammer, but it's red, but it can still 2 down, 2 up. So SOXL would need to break this 1510 here, then it can come to this 1636. You got this nice hammer that it printed after taking them out and filling this gap, and then it reversed. So there's no actionable signal here, but if it does continue, it will trigger the weekly to the upside. Now AMD and its earnings may actually help that. So AMD has earnings on Tuesday, and I had pointed this out in the Discord on Thursday when we were watching Chip Thursday, that AMD had a PMG on the week, and it's barely, these are almost like the same, but that's a possible pivot machine gun. And so we know that lately earnings have been coming in good. Although I think that AMD's earnings is not supposed to be that great, because there is a weaker demand for chips right now. So this could obviously go either way. But noticing the PMG on the chart, and then also knowing that earnings is coming up, that could be a possible catalyst for this to take all of these folks out. So of course I would give it time if you decide to play this, but you got a nice, beautiful hammer here on the week. And if it decides to do this 2 up, 2 down, 2 up on the week, it could possibly take out all these folks. And then it would be a 2-1, 2 up on the month, triggered at about 98. I think that 100 is going to be a solid resistance. So it'd have to get to that through that first before it can get to this 102. But I say 100 because, where was I looking at it? I think it was over here. So it's really about 98, where you see it is wicked off of it several times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 98 first, And then it can probably get to that 102. But I really wanted to point that out to y'all because, and then also look where it rejected at. So it took out all of these folks, found support here, tested it again. It's almost a double bottom with the hammer, and then 3-2 up. So although, you know, shorter term and on the week and everything, we are still in a, for the most part, downtrend. If this can 2 down, 2 up, and start making higher highs and lower highs, well, it actually did technically here. If you see this, this is a higher low. That's what I meant to say. I swear that's a tongue twister. This is a higher low. So as long as it keeps doing that, it may break out of this corrective phase and we can see this PMG really. So AMD is like my top earnings watch. And then of course you can play SOXL to play to avoid the IV on that. And then I believe MU kind of. So MU, yes, this was one I really liked. Where AMD earnings could possibly send it if it's bullish. But you just see here that it's at a critical point where if it can break out of this area, we have some range. It's basically almost been stuck inside of this compound bar, I think Rob would call it. But if it can break to the upside, it has some room to be able to move. So keep MU also on your watch list. Chart looks similar. And then you have this 3-2 up. You just really need them to break that 64, 65 area. And then it may be able to run about $10. So looking at China, K-Web, there is no actionable signal here on the month. But we've had 4 straight red weeks. And then it printed a hammer here, although this is a red hammer. So it really could have just been some corrective activity from this. And then it could still move to the downside. We still do have plenty of gaps down here to the downside to be able to fill. It's really in a downtrend for the most part, supported by how these are turned down, and it's using it as resistance. So yeah, it's still short the China mode right now. I have been basically shorting Baba. Y'all know I started the year bullish, and for the most part it was, but once it hit 120, it died, and it just really never came back. So it may actually do this move that it did right here, where it hit 120, came down, and then died for 4 months. So we're in 2, 3, the 3rd month, inside month here, so it could 2-1-2 down. It's more range that it can go. So Baba is not at its lowest. It's still more gaps down here. Oh wait, is that? I think that gap was filled. Not quite. I mean, we know China is the king of gaps, so, and all gaps don't get filled. But yeah, that's to, you know, it still has more room to the downside if it does want to go. And then I was reading in Jamal's IBD paper that investors are losing not interest in AI, but I guess the AI momentum may be slowing. I think a lot of people are scared of AI taking jobs away from people and things like that. But honestly, y'all know that be greedy when others are fearful, right? That's what Warren Buffett says. So if you missed this run up and you still wanted to invest in AI, you should start looking at it now. It still has more downside though. It could definitely, well, more possible downside, let me say. It could 3-2 down on the month. If they continue to sell it off, it could come all the way down, back down to this $10. I honestly think it may find support around this 1464. If you go based on supply and demand, that's really the top of the supply zone. So about $14 if you wanted to put in a buy there. Or even here on the weekly, 1153. Are there any gaps? There is no gaps. Oh, yep. Not really. So yeah, $11 even if it wants to continue to come down. I mean, if you look at it on the weekly, it's a shoulder, head. It fell out of this shoulder area, but it really is valid. It could come all the way down really to about 1374 and then still boom from there. But we have broken below our 200, so keep that in mind. There's a fresh gap and there's a hammer here, so if it decides to reverse, you can target the gap and then target the 200 and then kind of see what it does from there. You notice when it broke above it, it kind of consolidated and then died. So, is this going to be a fresh TTO from that consolidation and then move back into the trend? If so, then this may actually be at a good buy point. But I don't think that folks should just completely lose interest in AI. Just remember, this is a long-term type of thing. So, yeah. Airbnb has earnings on May 9th. So that's next week. And y'all know I don't necessarily like to play earnings, but I will try. If it's a week out, I may try to do like the earnings run up. So you do have an inside week here if it decides it wants to break this zone. You also have a possible rev strat on the month. If it has good earnings and decides to continue, then your target for that is going to be 144.77. So it has decent range if it does want to move up. If you look at it on the week, you kind of have a shoulder, head, shoulder. So it's supported by 109. And then you have where it's been kind of hanging out here around its 200 and it finally closed above it after some indecision. Got an inside candle here, so 212 up. But keep in mind, if you look at it here on the daily, you got these lower highs. It needs to break out and create a higher high. We have started to create higher lows, but it needs to create a higher high to break out of this range. You could also call this a cup and handle or bull flag, however you want to see that. So keep Airbnb on your list. Disney is another one we were watching because I mentioned to you guys a couple weeks ago. Oh no, I was here on the daily. A couple of weeks ago that the last time that they had earnings that they were in this same area and they ran from there. And so Disney did it. This almost looks like Nasdaq's chart, right? Where we had our consolidation, TTL, and then boom. We got our two white soldiers. Well, we have a third. So my first resistance is going to be at this 104. 102 was my first strong resistance. It finally broke past there and closed above. So that 104 area is going to be my first next resistance. And then also, if it decides, it's going to run from earnings, we do have a inside month with a hammer. So if it does a 212 up and really can break above that 104, then the magnitude for that is 117, which would take out this high here. There's people who would stops there. So, but keeping in mind also the top of this wedge, this resistance is going to be about 113. So that's going to be the first resistance, and if it can break through that, I'll be looking for that 118. Also on the week, you got this inverted head and shoulders. It's basically held. So, yeah. Watch Disney for that earnings run up. Snow is another one. Why did I like Snow? I believe it was this. Yes, it was this TTO on the week. This TTO right here. Move back up, TTO, and fill that gap. So looking to see if it's going to reverse and move out of this range right here. So that would be a 3-2 up on the week if it does. And then this, it's not quite an inside candle where it can at least be a 2-1-2 up, but it would still break that strong resistance at that 158 if it does decide to move up. Consequently, it could reverse back to the downside if it does break back to this downside to this range, then it can come down to this 131. Earnings could push that either way, but you do see this. You can finally break out of there, then it may be able to do some moves. But also would like to note that it has been making lower highs on the monthly. So if it can really break through there, because this is the most recent lows, it would create a higher high and a higher low. Y'all, I'll be tripping over those words. People who do that and don't have any problems. It's interesting. All right, before I go to this monthly list real quick, I'm gonna check the chat. DKNG, McDonald's, and cost. I love you more, Jamal. I sure can. Okay. DKNG. Alright, so nice inside bust out at a strong resistance here at this 21, 22 area. But if it can bust out of there, I mean, look at this. Nice double bottom. It found some really good support there and then moved from there. We got our rally base. So May just started another rally. Oops, the wrong thing. Loving the uptrend here. It's got a cup and handle. It boomed from that. So yeah, it's at a strong resistance now. We're well above our 200. And it's looked like the same thing. We got a TTO right here. We took out these folks and reversed from there. So I like this. This looks like it's, let me look at this on a quarter really quickly. Yeah, you've had a nice base here, and then it's breaking out. And that resistance right there, like breaking from there, you got some room to 28 here. Then we got all higher lows. Created a higher high here. Yep. So it looks good. It looks like it's also finding support here with this 20. I'm hearing some. Hold on. Oh, that's Kiki. What's up, Kiki? Uh-oh. I don't think she knows she's unmuted. Kiki, you know you unmuted? Or were you saying hi? You was breaking up using the matrix. Okay. Well, yeah, so that's DKNG. I really like that. It's definitely in by the dip mode. Dips down to this 8 or 20 and then it keeps going. So nice recovery there. I'm wondering if they're doing anything with AI in sports betting. Oh, also, does it have anything to do with the playoffs coming up or anything like that? Because if you think about it, it's really reversed in January. And the Super Bowl was what, in February? So it is reversed since then and then kind of waited. And then now the playoffs are starting and maybe it's going to go. I'm not too familiar with DKNG, but yeah. Just wondering if there's a rise in that. Oh, I don't know what that was. Cost. So cost. We were looking at cost last week to see if it was going to outside week, and it really couldn't quite finish. There's really no actionable signal here on the month. It's like, oh, this is possibly a head right here. And then we're in the shoulder area. You see, we're rejected right kind of at the top of the shoulder, which is this 505. So, honestly, this could possibly rev strat on the day. But it's finding some really strong support at this 495 on this 200. It was resistance at first, but then played around enough to find some support. So interesting to see what this does, because this could stay in this shoulder area and then die, which would give us the 2 up, 2 down on the week. That's at 491. Wouldn't really reverse on the month, but time frame continuity is for the most part green, except, you know, for this week. Have to see how we would start out next week, but I'd be watching this area for the most part. If it continues to support this, then it may move back up. Consequently, you know, I see this head right here in this shoulder shorter term, but when you zoom out, you do have a larger shoulder, head, shoulder that's supported really by that 495. So actually it could even come down to 488 just to take these folks out and still bounce. Yeah, that would be my support for it. You can see it hit the top of this line. So if it did keep going, if anything, that would be my next resistance, 511. When is cost? Did they have their earnings? Oh, they've been had their earnings. Okay, so their earnings I think is June. Does it say on here? Don't. Oh, not till August. So yeah, I have to see though. Like, it's supported there, and then even here with wash below, the EMAs didn't quite turn down, and it even started turning back up. So I'm more inclined to think that this wouldn't necessarily reverse. However, Monday we could open up and this could rev strat down, take that out, and then these start turning down. So it's kind of at a point where it could go either way, in my opinion. And McDonald's. So I rubbing my hands because I was looking at McDonald's on Thursday and I was like, would you look at this right here? Like, come on, man. It's not just even being salty about missing that. It's just like, all right, it's time for you, like, to have like some type of correction, because, you know, you're just like really booming here. I believe it hit new highs, 296. Yep, new all-time highs. But it broke out of this range, so it might not necessarily be ready to come down just yet. It has to really give us a strong sign, because right now we have all the green. They are buying the dips. It's been supported. However, we do have this huge PMG on the week. Not necessarily saying it would take all of these out, but to even get some correction, at least back to this 8, would be great. It has a lot of range to move back through the month to possibly make this a 2 up, 2 down. So, look, if you look at it right there, it'd have to go all the way down here. But who's to say a PMG couldn't do that? You know? So if anything, my first support, well, first of all, it would need the 2 up, 2 down on the week. And we kind of almost have a hammer. So it's not even giving any indication that it's doing that. So it would need to 2 up, 2 down on the day, then come down, 2 down on the week. And then we may see some correction for this PMG. I would think, let's see. If we look at, really, that's where the first support is going to be. About 272. If it does the PMG, I don't necessarily think it's going to take all of them out, but I think it could at least come down to this 272 range, if it would come back down and flip all of that. So just remember that, you know, it has a lot of range to come back down, and then we need to flip everything red for me to say it's really in a true reversal. I was looking at it Thursday because we had this shooter here. So I saw this shooter, it had closed below the 8, and I said, okay, well, maybe it is going to decide to come down and take this PMG out. But you see it didn't. So until it really can hold under this 8 and even go down to this 20, it's been in that uptrend ever since it broke out in March. So to the upside though, if it does continue, of course there's no actionable signal, but then psychological targets 300, 305, 310, that type of thing. So that is McDonald's. Let me see if we have any other questions. He also said he's watching Cisco. I think I saw that on the scanner somewhere. All right, Cisco outside month. Look at this on the quarter really quickly. Almost outside quarter. So honestly, that'd be my first target, that 45.67. We know Cisco doesn't move a whole lot though, so it may take a little while to get there, but give it some time, it definitely could. Especially if it does this 3-2 down on the month. But I think it may have some corrective activity first before it does that, simply because of this hammer right here, how far away it is from the EMAs, and this gap. So that would be my first target. I think it may move to the upside, try to fill this gap, maybe even come up and test this 200, and then it could come back down. I mean, if you even think of it in terms of fib, you see how it took out that low and it came back up. We know that if it came and triggered this 48.48, that it would do a possible outside week, but we also know that this is an area where they would possibly short. So I would be looking at that to see if it came up to possibly H. But we do have that gap here, and then we have this gap here also to the upside if it decides to move. But then if it does a 3-2 down, you got this range that it can come down to. No gaps, I think, on the day. Oh wait, yep. It's a gap here at 45. Right at 40. So it almost filled that gap, but it didn't. But it did, and it didn't take these folks out either. So if anything, this may do what it did here. Had a drop, couple of green days, and then it dropped again. But if it breaks above this 47.46, that will have changed that little structure, because we got a lower high, lower high. If it breaks that, then it would need to have reversed from here for me to think that it can continue the downside. Otherwise, it may break this little teeny structure right here and go back to the upside for correction. So it said the 47.5 call looks yummy. Yes, I agree. That is a great point right there. It's an easy obtainable strike, and y'all know Cisco is cheap. So, and you don't need a whole lot. It doesn't have to move $3 for you to get that. So Jamal said, I think bad earnings will bleed the market next week. I think you're talking about for Apple, right? I think that could definitely do it. Of course, Apple doesn't report earnings until Thursday, so that's like the end of the week. So I guess we would have to see. Are there any specific movers on the earnings list that you're looking at that you think would be will help bleed the market? I am going to, while you're looking at that, I'm going to look at this monthly list real quick. So I didn't finish this, but these were a few things that I was looking at for the month. In terms of, as far as inside months, I did like XLF, which is of course a financial sector. Watch JPM. I believe that also had an inside week. Oh no, it was inside month. Yes, watch JPM to see what they do. Basically, they already had their earnings, so whichever way they go, this also could move the market a little bit if it pulls back. But whichever way they go could be an indicator for XLF with that inside month. XLY also has an inside month, and that's consumer discretionary. I can't think of one off the top of my head with this, but I do kind of like it because if it can, we've had our consolidation after this hammer. If it can 2-1-2 up that'll be great, and you have some range there. And then also it would have finally broken above this 200. That is finding resistance on both the day, the week, and the month. So that's a really strong resistance to see if that can continue up. IWM I already talked about as far as the inside month. MS, which also has to do with XLF and the financial sector. So you got an inside month here. And then also you have an inside week and an inside day. I kind of really like that because it's hard to find those triples sometimes. So, you would be looking for the inside day to trigger up, to trigger the inside week up, to trigger the inside month up to 99.19, possibly on Morgan Stanley. So keep that in mind. This inside could also go either way. It's right at its 200, so you have to see which way this is going to go. Already talked about AMD for the inside month and that hammer on the week, and then we also talked about Disney for the inside month. MU. Oh yeah, we talked about MU as well. So I believe that's all I have for y'all today. Kiki, I think you are at work, so you are unable to talk right now, right?
Loud.
What up? What's up?
What's good?
Yeah, man.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. As far as that earnings stuff, so
I was about to talk.
I'm
I was
sorry.
about to talk.
Okay. You go ahead now. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm at work, so I can't really dive in like how I need to. So, you can go ahead. I was just joking.
Yeah. As far as the earnings, I just had it up here, but AMD, I think they're reporting on Tuesday. And then the whole thing from what I'm seeing is that they expected to report a drop in first quarter revenue on Tuesday, hurt by slumps in personal computer market and slowing data center business.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not expecting them to, say too many good things as far as their numbers now. Their guidance might be good. So that's what you want to look forward to. They have good guidance. Wednesday, QCOM is reporting, and they're saying that they're likely to decline in the second quarter revenue, hurt by weak smartphone demand. So it's kind of like, if those chips don't hit, then they're going to probably, clap everything else.
Oh.
So what is look like they're going to be hitting is Starbucks. It said it's expected to report a rise in second quarter same store sales on Tuesday. As well as Uber reported to expecting a rise in first quarter revenue on Tuesday, gaining from post-COVID reopenings and return of passenger traffic. Dash is also projected to jump, held up by steady demand for groceries, pet food items, as well as home orders and things like that. Mm-hmm. Despite higher prices and inflation. So they're still making money. I used Dash yesterday. So
man, seriously, I still use Dash myself. So yep.
And then you got a whole bunch of kind of healthcare stuff that's supposed to be scheduled to report now. This stuff is still kind of highly. I'm kind of sideways about this because we don't really have numbers. But you got Pfizer reporting, Moderna reporting, and Regeneron reporting, as well as CVS. So keep eyes on the healthcare sector stock. I think CVS is, they say their earnings.
Ooh, CVS has been beat down.
Mm-hmm. So they report Wednesday, and they say the investors are keen in to hear about the prescription drug demand and insurance businesses. And as far as their acquisitions, CVS, I guess, is acquiring some stuff. But they'll be on lookout to hear what CVS has to say about that. And then last but not least, you got you have Coinbase. And that is also going to be, have eyes on crypto too. So depending on how they report, I don't really have numbers on them. So it's kind of like a if in between indecision on coin, but just be aware that whatever they do, that's going to affect mostly all of the crypto sector. So you got Coin, Mara, Riot, and Master as well that might be listening or have price action based off of what coin does.
And if Bitcoin falls, then the market's going to fall, basically, from what I've seen lately. So that makes sense. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Problemo.
Appreciate that. Chef Rock said, Apple will bleed or lead. Yeah. For the most part, if Apple bleeds, then everything else that's been held up is definitely gonna die for the most part. And then if it booms, then yeah, I guess everything can continue going to the upside. Jamal, what do you think about Apple's earnings? Like, do you think that they will, because I know that they said that they're expecting them to report a decline in sales over the last 5 years, based off of, this is from the IBD paper, but based off of weaker iPhone and Mac sales demands. But we do have that event in June. So, I was looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, we might have a little bit correction, but I don't know necessarily or think that it will really bleed and like really send the market down. Like, what do you think as far as that?
Well, I think it'll send the market down. If it bleeds, it'll send the market down for a day, but it's Apple.
Right.
At the end of the day, they have millions and millions of, for lack of better term, fanatics that'll support their infrastructure and their products. So that's why the thing in June is kind of so important, because they're going to be introduced a new crack for people to get addicted to.
Right.
And so they already have, millions and millions of customers or addicts that are in the supply system. So all they have to do is just make it look feasible to them, and they'll automatically invest in it. So any dip on Apple is just a buying opportunity.
Yep.
If you're looking at a more long-term investor type of mindset.
I completely agree.
And going back to that, you also, if you're looking at a more short-term day traders mindset, you want to be buying the rumors and selling the news. So you want to be buying up all of this speculation right now and then selling more towards June when they actually have that event. I notice me and my group, sometimes we'll actually watch the Apple events, just trying to see what happens. And usually the stock moves sideways and then dumps on these events.
It really does. Yes.
Regardless of how cool the stuff they're showing, the stock will move sideways and then dump, because it's just that old concept: buy the rumors, sell the news. So you just want to keep that in mind.
I agree. Well, thank you so much.
No problem.
Kiki, you able to say anything? Did you want to say anything before we go?
No, I didn't look at much. Probably just my eyes is on American Express, McDonald's, and what else I was looking at? Disney. I think you need more over Disney. That's pretty much it. Those are the main, and Spy, because I just want to see what it's going to do. But those are my plays for next week: is McDonald's and American Express.
And you're looking at American Express for calls, right? To possibly break out of this commercial and break out of that. Yep. We got an inside week right here. 3-1. And then if it can break out, if it can really break this 167-ish and break this structure, then it can send. And it has a couple gaps up here to the upside too, y'all. So AXP, you got this fresh TCO right here. And then this inside candle. So, and y'all know Kiki is not always bullish. So for her to be bullish,
extremely rare.
And McDonald's, now I did go over McDonald's, but like, are you looking on the 4-hour?
I'm looking at the 4-hour and the 2-hour actually. I don't think it's gonna fall, but I do think it needs to come down just a little bit.
Down here, right? So this 290.
Yeah, about 290, 291.
Okay, I like that for some correction, and then it may do this right here, y'all. Actually, come
Yeah.
back down, and then boom back up.
All right,
So
that's what I'm hoping it does. A little nice little movement.
yep, so you can catch that two up, two down in strat terms, y'all. 293 would be your first, and then it's 290 area. I like that. That actually could also be the start of a head if it did want to decide to come. It could head there, come back up, test this again, and then fall. Hey, mark that if it does that. I'm gonna come back here in like 3 weeks and see if it actually does something like that and decides to die. But yeah. But okay, guys. I guess let me check this chat one more time, see if anybody has any other questions. If not, then I will see you guys next week. Thank y'all for coming. Of course. Oh, let me open this. Yep, that's it. All right. Well, I will see you guys next week. Everybody enjoy the day.
See you. Thank you, Allah.
Of course. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.